Hey, this is Author Chat, and I'm your host, E. Davis, and I'm beyond excited. This is June the 10th. I'm very excited because I have the pleasure of interviewing this beautiful young lady, this woman of God. I've known her for some time, and she has bit the bullet and become an entrepreneur. She is a certified life coach. Her name is Charfay Lynn. You'll see her on Facebook. Just follow her links. And she has written and composed a prayer journal. As soon as I saw it on Instagram, let me see, my lighting is horrible. As soon as I saw it on Instagram, I immediately messaged her and went out and got the prayer journal. Those that know me knows that I am a journaler. I am big on journaling. I believe journaling is cathartic at the risk of sounding cliche. Whether you are journaling about your day, your boss got on your nerves, your kids got on your nerves, your man got on your nerves, your woman got on your nerves, your neighbors your neighbors just did the most. Journaling could just help cleanse your mind, especially after a long day. And even if there's something that you're grateful for that you picked up along the way, some jewels, some nuggets you get picked up, just journaling can just help put everything in perspective on what's really important. So this young lady composed a prayer journal, and it is available on Amazon. It is called A Prayer Journal with Guided Scriptures. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce to most of you Miss Charfay Lynn. Charfay, thank you so much for joining us. You are so pretty. Oh my goodness. You just, even your
Thank you.
continents, just back in the day, you were just so serene and ethereal. Just, you know what I mean? And I was just a hyper chick, like, oh, how are you? How's your day? How you doing? And you were like, listen, it is too early to be this hype. But no, you just have a beautiful spirit. And I'm just so proud of you. And thank you again for joining us today with Author Chat.
I'm excited.
So tell us what encouraged you. Um, let's talk about your journey. When you decided to become a life coach, what inspired that journey?
A lot. So I would say what kind of pushed me the most into that space was getting out of a long-term relationship that I was dealing with. Um, it took me on a very crazy roller coaster ride, dealing with a lot of things, just processing that all and trying to get me to a space of moving on from that relationship and then healing, then actually finding myself again because I was turning into a person I didn't even really recognize. So a lot of those things kind of took me on this journey to prompt me to say, okay, I want to start moving into this space. I want to get out of this toxic type of space that I'm in and I want to get into a better space. So, yeah.
All right. So if I was to come to you, and if I don't have it together, which half the time I don't, but if I was to come to you and say, I'm just having a rough time. My husband is just doing the most. He's working my nerves. My daughter's doing the most. She's not tapping into who she needs to be. She's 23 years old. She's lazy. I'm feeling un- unaccomplished, as if I didn't do my part as a mother, as a wife. What can you do to encourage me, or what steps or life skills would you give me to help me shift from one level to the next?
Well, the first thing I think I've learned that I also like to tell other people is to give yourself grace. Um, we all go through tough things, deal with tough obstacles. So that would be the first step is to just give yourself grace. Like I said, we all deal with a lot. So after that process, then it would be to kind of attack certain things in increments. I don't like to really be overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. So I kind of sit down, and like you mentioned in the introduction, I also do a lot of journaling. That's how I kind of came about putting all of these things into a book and other books that I'm working on. So just kind of piecing together certain things, putting them into those small increments and moving forward with that. But just kind of starting, like I said, just starting slow and kind of thinking about where you want to go, how you want to move forward. And I think journaling to me is the best option, just to kind of get everything out of your mind, out of your head, and put it all on paper so that, like I said, you're not too overwhelmed with everything that's going on. So I think that would probably be at least the first 2 points, like to give yourself grace, just kind of take a breather, don't be so hard on yourself. And then once you get past that step, then it would be to take those small things, certain topics, whatever it is that you're trying to figure out or work on, and just put it all out on paper. Then move to the next step, which would be to how are you going to implement all of those things? What steps are you going to take and how are you going to work towards that? And just take it slow because it's a process. It's not going to be something that you're going to be able to accomplish tomorrow. Like everything, in my opinion, is a process. It takes time if you want to get it done right. So you can always be moving fast, but you might be moving fast in the wrong direction. So for me, it's just kind of taking that time and taking a breather, because to me, like getting overwhelmed with everything and then trying to push through it and rush through things, that to me, that just makes the matter worse. So
Okay. So you say give yourself grace. Is that forgiving yourself for what you may not have done, or allowing the turbulence to take place and not blaming yourself?
I would say it's a little bit of both. Not necessarily being so hard on yourself as far as blaming yourself. I think there is a point where we do have to take accountability for certain things that happen in our lives, but as far as thinking through those things and how the situation occurred or whatever the case may be as far as how it happened, um, in my opinion, giving that grace just means that you acknowledge that it happened, you take accountability for your part and whatever part you think you may have played in the situation, and then you figure out how to move forward in that process, because things that happen, they've already happened. So you can't go back, you can't, fix whatever has happened. So you have to understand that this is where you're at now. So you have to figure out, how do I move forward with that? How do I process these things that have already happened? Show myself grace because I've made a mistake or I may have done some things that I'm not too proud of. But acknowledging that and then also figuring out, well, how do I move forward? How do I become a better person? How do I move past this? Because we're living in the present moment. And those are some of the things that I try to definitely consider and think about, because living in the past or continuing to keep pondering on a lot of things really doesn't help you move forward, really doesn't get you to a space of where you want to be at, because life still goes on. It doesn't really matter whatever you may have done or what may have happened in the past. Life is still going. Life is still moving. So we just have to kind of roll with the punches and take things as they are.
Wow, that's heavy. When I got married to my husband now, we have 7 years in. Thank you, Lord, that somebody has tolerated me for 7 years. But my daughter was 16 when we got married. We got together and she was 15. And I was married previously. And so by the time she was 7, I became a single mother. And then, I got married. And one thing that my husband now picked up on was she was not completely self-sufficient at 16. Now, 16, you're still a minor in legal terms. But it was even at the point of washing and doing her own hair. And I did not catch that because when she was born, when I was pregnant, when I found out that I was having a girl, at the time I was 22, 23. I had very thick, coarse hair, like, straight from the motherland type hair. And I said my daughter was going to either have my hair or her daddy's hair. And he had thick hair. And so I had to learn how to do hair because I also had a stepdaughter I was raising respectfully, and she had a head full of hair. So I'm like, okay, it has to be more than just the ponytails and bollies. So I learned maybe 2 weeks after my birth daughter was born, how to cornrow and do the braids, the old school Venus and Serena braids. Because I had now three babies, right? And so every 2 weeks I would wash and condition her hair and braid it up. Because in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to be doing hair every day, every other day, with the bollies and all that. I'm not doing that. So, without realizing it, and this became a routine even after me and my ex-husband separated. Like, even though this is a new normal, this is on now our new normal, we're still going to maintain a routine. And every 2 weeks, you're getting your hair done, you're getting rebraided. And I kept her hair done. I mean, you looking at the styles that Alicia Keys had back in the day, Allen Iverson, the beads, I had it. My baby's hair was done. Okay. And then when she got to a certain age, maybe 10, 11, I learned how to do the press out, the blow drying and the flat ironing. And that was a good, yeah, that was some work. I mean, that was a Saturday afternoon. That was hair day. And then, and she maybe later on her teens, I think I was speaking to you years ago, how to box braid. He was like, just get it done. I said, okay. So I was, I mean, just as opposed to just getting that scalp and pulling at it. So I learned to box braid. And so, I'm getting married and it's happily ever after. And my husband is adjusting to us, this already made family. He was bonding with my daughter. He was bonding with me. And he said, she doesn't know how to wash her hair. And I was like, what are you talking about? It really was like a moment. And I said, well, I do her hair. So I looked at it. I looked at myself as her hair stylist, her hair dresser. So why would she need to learn how to do it if I'm doing it? And he said, well, what if you died tomorrow? And I said, whoa, she's not prepared. And unfortunately, my mom died young. My mom died when I was 22. My brother was 17. But by the time I was 22, I knew how to cook. I knew to do laundry. I knew how to keep house. I knew to do my own hair. And again, my brother was 17. I said, she's not prepared for anything because mommy always did it. Mommy cooked. Mommy did laundry. Mommy did hair. And I had a routine. I had a schedule. You know what I mean? She could dust a table or two, but I always did it. I never made her accountable. So at 15, 16, 17, it's like, wow. And I honestly felt like a bad mother, as if I failed. I was like, I messed up. I completely messed up. And for years, I was applauding myself as a survivor because I was coming out of a domestic violence. So I was a survivor. I was a single mother. I was an independent woman. And little did I realize that I looked at it as I damaged my child. And my husband said, he said, no, you didn't damage her because you was in survivor mode. So you didn't stop to think.
Right.
And so that's where the grace, I had to give myself grace.
Yeah.
That it was already done. So now how do you move forward? So now getting her to, I mean, she got it, she got little lazy spells here. I'm like, oh, Jesus. But it's on the level of my daughter now. She's 23 and of course she's working and she's applying for credit cards, reading the fine print. And he's like, no, I don't want this credit card because the interest rate and the APA rate. Yeah. And I don't even know that. I was like, the APA. I said, just pay your bill on time. You be good. But no, it's the fact that I had to re recess and reset because I mean I don't have no plans. I'm 47. I have no plans. I'm knocking on all this wood right here, like knock, knock, knock. I have no plans, but I don't want her being in a position where she can't take care of herself, and that's something that we women, I guess, women that's been in situations have to learn that we've all been in a situation where it's been foggy
Yeah.
and we didn't think to teach, quote unquote, teach our children, our nieces, our nephews, or even put the helping hand out to one another. Say, girl, listen, let's get you out of this situation because you can win. And it's not about being a mad black woman or a bitter black woman.
Right.
It's about surviving. So I love the comment, the statement. You have to give yourself grace because nobody's perfect. We've all failed to yeah, I tell you what, we've all failed to we saw the red flags, but we all failed to address them. Whether detrimental red flags or the obvious red flags. It's like, okay, that's a red flag. I'm not dealing with that. And it doesn't even have to be in a romantic relationship, but more so of a friendship. It could be a friendship that you and a sister girl is conjuring up, and you're like, okay, let's be great friends. Let's keep in touch. And again, it could be the relationships we all failed, and now it's like, okay, what do you do now? And you take the steps, like I said, to take the small steps to move on.
Yeah.
That's
It,
heavy.
that's why I repeat it like it's a process because it's I feel like I'm learning so much. I mean, I know I still have a lot more to learn, but just like you said, even not just narrowing it down to like romantic relationships, but friendships, relationships with my mom now, relationships with my brothers. It's just a lot. Even now, I ask my mom a lot of questions. Like, I never really used to ask her, just about her life and how she grew up, because a lot
Hmm.
of things that she went through, I really never knew about, because we never really had those conversations until I started to get curious about myself. And then I realized, like, I have to go and talk to my parents. That's where I came from. That, the certain mannerisms, certain things that I do, why am I like this? And just having those conversations with her. And I'm just thankful that she has really been so open to just telling me pretty much anything that I've asked. She's been open to share those stories with me, and that helps me to understand myself. And it's just, like I said, I'm just grateful that I'm able to have those conversations even now. So a lot of those things, communication, even with my brothers, I have three brothers. The communication has not always been there with them, but just a lot of talking, a lot of communication, I think has definitely helped me, like I said, getting through that process and really discovering who I am and still learning about myself. So
No, that's beautiful. My mother, like I said, she had passed away young, but I do remember. Um, I have a queen complex because I get it from her. Um, a diva. She had all brothers, so they catered to her, and she was one of the oldest. So it was even she was not the oldest, but she moved like the oldest. So
yeah.
um, and I'm the oldest, and my dad's the oldest. So I got that that puffed up demeanor. Um, I have a younger brother, and he has the same puffed up swagger. You know what I mean? Um, and communication with my brother, it's good. We definitely had some um rough times because he's finding out who he is, and I'm being an Aries too emotional and not accepting who he is. I'm like, nope, set the fire. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
my poor brother's wife, it was his girlfriend at the time. she was messaging me and personally like, what is the problem now? I'm like, I'm sick of it. You know what I mean? So I thank God that she even stayed in this family. But nonetheless, I had to learn. I learned through my father, because my father still living. We have a great relationship, like you, who I am. And based off of the mannerisms that my mother bestowed, um, as I grew up, and then my father's mannerisms and some of the family traits, I can see where I get my demeanor from. And someone's like, "Ooh," and I keep a look in the mirror and say, "That's ugly. You can't." I'm like, "All right, I gotta take a deep breath, and I actually gotta pray on him. Like, all right, Lord, I need to move differently for anything to be accomplished on my level, on their level, on a positive level. So I gotta, suppress the fire of burning all the bridges, because I'll burn the bridge in a minute. I don't care. I'll light that bridge up. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't want it, you want to come over this path, that's quite all right. But I'm learning not to burn the bridges and just say, okay, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna let you do you, and I'm gonna do me. When the season's right, we can come together and keep moving. So it is small steps, because once you learn who you are and understand, appreciate your value, I believe that's when the journey can begin.
Yeah.
See, I feel you helping me. You giving me I'm gonna feel better after it. I'll be like, you know what I mean? Now, let's talk about your journal. What inspired you to create a journal?
Well, definitely, I'm going to mention that again. I like to journal. I journal like you, pretty much everything: prayers, what I'm going through, what I'm trying to process, trying to understand, just so many things. And I think it stemmed from the first book that I put out, which was the 30-day devotional that I did. It talked about my relationship that I mentioned previously, or the beginning of the talk, about my 10-year relationship and just other relationships as well. But that was one of the main ones because I was in it for so long. It was such a roller coaster, ups and downs, and a lot of stuff that I learned from that. So I did the devotional 30 days. And in that book, I talked about that relationship in particular, other relationships I had before that, after that. And then in that book, I also did, at the end of each chapter, I wrote out a prayer, just basically talking about specifically what that chapter talked about, and then just praying over that situation in particular, whatever chapter that was addressing. So once I did that, I started thinking more about how uh, I do journal intentionally, as far as doing my prayers and putting scripture and incorporating that into my prayers. So once I thought about that, and I'm like, well, this is something I can probably share, because you don't have to do that specifically with like just praying about relationships. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So a few things that I remember, just for me specifically, praying on and then incorporating scripture into that, is just with worrying. I used to do a lot of overthinking, getting in my head. So that was one thing that I know specifically I go to prayer in, and then I also incorporate scripture into that. So the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, this is something that I'm actually already doing. So I kind of just got creative with it. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, this is something that I can just go ahead and share. So wrote some things down. Definitely took some time to think through a few things, even look through like my own past journals that I had did, some stuff that I wrote down, some different scriptures that I wrote down in my personal journals. And then that's when I was like, okay, well, I can put some of this stuff together and then also do some more research on my own, kind of talk to some other people. What are some stuff that, you've been praying about, or some stuff that you've been dealing with, and how do we incorporate that together? And then that's when I came up with the prayer journal. So,
I think it's very beautiful, and I love the table of contents because um one I like is, me personally, is the prayer to fight, because
yeah,
fighting is not always a physical thing. You know what I mean? You're not always, this. And as I'm almost 50, I don't have time for this. And then praying is not always, fighting is not always getting even.
right.
As easy as it is, and I know I'm guilty of it, was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna show you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because I could just, girl, I could conjure up something like, okay, I got you.
Mhm.
Um, but really praying that God intervenes in a situation, so then that way you can just step back and just relax. Because if you put so much physical energy, you're exhausted and you can't function throughout the day. Which I personally like. Also, I like prayer to respect the Lord, because we don't. And me personally, I'm a Christian and I'm an evangelist, and if we don't respect the Lord, then we can't pray for other people
Right.
or pray for ourselves, because we have no respect. Okay, and then I love for patience and hope. We have to have patience in a situation with our friends or family or loved ones, because they may not move as fast as we move.
Right.
Because I'm someone that when I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. When I'm ready to shift, I'm ready to shift. And if you're not shifting with me, then you can't be on my team. But if that person may be meant to be on your team, but they don't move as fast as you emotionally or mentally. So that patience and long suffering comes in, where you just have to not really fall back, but just sit back and allow God to move in them the way they moved in you. Because there's one point where we weren't ready to shift, and those that were praying for us didn't let us go, walk away.
Humble. I've been humbled quite a few times.
Girl, don't. I'd be like, it was just recently. I was there was a situation that was brought to my attention. I was in fact, it was last week. Extremely disappointed. It kept me up all night. I wasn't upset. I wasn't, but I was bothered. My spirit was bothered. Um, it kept me up all night, and I was praying like, Lord, do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see what's going on? This is why. This is maybe why I'm where I'm at, and this is why they're where they're at. And I couldn't sleep at all that night. I just kept tossing and turning. I slept real fitfully, and usually when I sleep fitfully, I know the Lord wants me to get up and pray. So I got up and I came in here about 3, 4 in the morning, and I prayed, and I was like, okay, let me find scriptures to deal with this. Let me find scriptures to not rebuke the situation, but something scriptures will make me feel better on why I feel the way I feel.
Yeah.
And what he led me to was Ephesians 4, was regardless of what's going on, you have to be united to show love. No
Whew.
matter what it looks like. You can't do this. It's too easy. You can't do this. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do this. You gotta get it together. But you have to show love regardless. So I had to humble myself, like, oh wow, okay. Huh.
Mm.
Humble myself. I had to pray the Psalms 51 prayer. Pray to me a clean heart and renew a right spirit. And I had to pray the Isaiah 6, like, okay, Lord, you're sending me and I have unclean lips. And I may not be cussing, but I could be fussing. I could be, so I was like, wow. So I had to really just sit back and just be like, oh, wow, okay. And I just let it go. No matter how much it had to start, I let it go. And what was so amazing was after I let it go, from them 2.5, 3 hours I was praying. It was about 6:30. I lay back down and I went to sleep and rested.
Wow.
And you would think that I slept all night.
Yeah.
I was
That
like, wow, okay, this is what it is to just let go, let God. So now I don't even worry. But I'm like, I know the bills will do. Let go, let God. You know what I mean? I don't worry about any of that. But yes, so yeah. So that's so encouraging because not only are you giving the advice, but you're telling people this is what I do. And
yeah.
this can help you.
I've I've been doing it all my life, really, like without even knowing it. I've had diaries, I've written down just random things, like even reflecting on the new book that I have. I've gone into a space where I'm like, this is really something I didn't even notice that was already inside of me. This is stuff that I've been doing forever. And it's just to even go back and look at some of the stuff I've written down when I was younger. It was like I was always in that space to write and reflect and think things through without getting to the space of overreacting. It's like, well, wait a minute, let's think about this, or let's write this down. Let's get our thoughts together. And it's just been so helpful for me because I'm just in a good space now. I have that peace that I know
Mm-hmm.
that no one can take away from me because I get into that space with God. I get into that space with researching and looking up different scriptures. Just even now, I'm reading a lot of Proverbs, and just going through that book is like, wow. Even though I've read it before, it's just like you come back to stuff and you're like, I didn't catch that the first
Oh
time.
yeah, you be like, what?
Yeah,
That's what makes it special because because you're in a new season in your life, and when
yeah,
you read something over, it's speaking to that season.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so. I
Absolutely.
might have to hit the Proverbs journey. I'm a little OCD, so I can't read it in a 30-day month. I got to have a 31-day. It's
Yeah,
it's the OCD in me, so I'll probably start it in July and maybe meditate on each chapter or each Proverbs because Proverbs is heavy. My brother's favorite book is Proverbs, and I jokingly say, "Well, you should kind of live by it," but no, I'm just teasing. No, he's very wise, but it is deep, and it makes you really reflect on what is the purpose of life. Really
yeah,
reflect, and even your inner circle, who your friends are, um, even your family. I tell my husband all the time, just because we're related does not make us family. It's my family is those that one who do the will of Christ, and my family is are the ones that I can call at 2 in the morning, or I could text at 2 in the morning. He's going to pray with me and for me. That's my family. Just because that's your sister biologically, or that's my brother biologically, it makes us relatives. So we have the same DNA.
right.
So if you need a kidney or a blood donor, I got you. But a family is someone who's going to be there and make sure that you're okay. That's family. He's going to ride or die with you. That's family. So
Right.
yes, ma'am. Oh, it was a joy, Charfay.
I appreciate it. I thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Um, this won't be the last book. Like I said, I'm in the process of just doing a lot right now. So I just thank you for this time just to get this out here and just for me to keep putting myself out there. So I'm excited about this journey. I really
Good
am.
for you. I'm excited with you. I'm just happy because I see you doing big. I'm like, oh, hold up. Let me. You doing big. I said, wait a minute. Let me catch up. Let me catch
All
up to this
over.
bandwagon. Yes, yes. All right, I'm gonna put the sponsors and disclosure up. Here we go. This author chat with Davis is sponsored by Writers Block Publishing LLC. Writers Block Publishing LLC sponsors independent authors for free. and Starks Contracting LLC for interior and exterior restorations. And we are out.